Well, the online target of government agencies and infrastructure will no doubt be at the forefront of the government's agenda this year. And while cyber attacks in Australia are certainly not new, there are growing concerns on the scale of the activity in 2021. Now, my next guest is a businessman and a company director. He's been deeply involved in cybersecurity for the past 21 years. He's also the founder and chairman of Sanitas Corporation, a leading developer of encryption security services trusted to protect government in more than 40 countries. Francis Galbally joins me now from Melbourne. Francis, you had a very powerful piece in the Australian today. You wrote, "Australians should not be under any illusion. The risk of cyber attack at a personal, government and corporate level poses a security threat greater than any Australia has experienced. We are today at war again, a cyber war." Talk us through this and pray tell, who are we actually at war with?
Well, Cory, good evening, and good evening to your viewers. We're at war with a range of people, rogue nations who attack our systems in order to see if there are weaknesses in penetration, and then to steal information. These nations, one doesn't have to be a rocket science to work out. North Korea certainly is one of them. Iran is another one. Russia has been doing this for a decade now, and perhaps even longer. China does it. And mind you, Western governments themselves are attacking the network systems of other countries as well, to check whether they can penetrate or not penetrate. But the risk is huge, and it's important now to understand that a huge amount of investment needs to be made by government, leadership needs to be taken by government, and we need to understand what these risks are. The difficulty is most of us have no idea what the risk is. We use our mobile phone, we use the internet, we'll do emails, we'll do Facebook, but we don't realise that our identities could be stolen, our financial information could be being accessed, intellectual property could be stolen. People could put a digital Trojan into the network of a company that stays there for 5 years. And this has happened on many occasions, and we believe that it's happened just now in America, where some of the largest American government institutions have been hacked and Trojans are now resting in their networks. Huge risk.
Well, Francis, it is a massive threat to all governments, but governments are generally pretty well equipped. They've got the resources or have the capacity to enlist them to protect themselves and have counter surveillance. But what about the smaller business? I recently heard about a hedge fund that had $8 or $10 million taken from it and was forced to close down because of a cyber hacking attempt. What's the regular Australian, the small business person, to do to protect their online security and keep their livelihoods right?
Well, the ordinary Australian needs to take a lead from government. So government needs to stand up and provide appropriate education and training to small business owners so that they can understand the risk. I mean, the risk usually is human. It's usually a human person. Oh, we're all humans, sorry. But it's usually a person who receives an email that came from out of the blue, and they automatically click on it, and immediately the damage is done. But Cory, I do disagree with you about government. Government doesn't have the appropriate security. Yes, it's getting there, but there's a lot of government that is not properly secure. Government doesn't encrypt all the data that's held at rest. A lot of data that's transmitted is transmitted in the open, and that can easily be intercepted. People don't realise that fibre optics can easily be tapped. So there are so many risks out there that government doesn't understand, corporates don't understand, people don't understand, which is why I'm calling for a government departmental agency that is properly financed, that can take the lead in explaining this, educating and creating a huge industry for Australia.
Well, look, I take your point, because it reminded me that we've had the AGO plans for the new building were hacked and stolen by a foreign actor. We've had multiple attacks on Parliament House, the security systems and defence. You mentioned that fibre optics are particularly vulnerable. A lot of our telecommunications infrastructure, including the NBN, is now running on fibre optics. Does that suggest the whole infrastructure may be susceptible to a cyber attack?
Well, it is, unless it's appropriately secured. So a lot of fibre optics, there's fibre optics running around Canberra for government. A lot of that's encrypted, but a lot isn't. There are fibre optic networks. NextGen, for example, is a company that runs fibre optic networks for government. That's encrypted, but a lot isn't. So it needs to be encrypted. Cory, the best example is this. If you went down a street in Canberra or any capital city, you'd see there's a manhole down the streets. And if you had a tool, you'd easily be able to open that manhole. You'd be able to put a little fence around it. You could put up a sign saying that you're from such and such company doing maintenance. You could get into that manhole. There is a device that you can get on the internet that costs less than $60 US. That device can clamp onto the fibre optic and can copy everything that's going through that piece of fibre. Now, go tell me, is that secure?
Yeah, it's a rhetorical question. I think we all know the answer to that. But amazingly, the outrage over what you just said won't be because of the vulnerability. It'll be because the term manhole is probably not politically correct anymore. I'm being a bit facetious.
A person hole, yes, a person Cory. Hole. I apologise. It should be a person hole or animal hole.
That's all right. Francis Galbally, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your insights tonight.
Thank you, Cory. My pleasure.